Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning. Chris, you think we're ready, or?
I think we're ready. Go right ahead, Craig.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I certainly appreciate you taking time out of your day to come to the virtual booth this morning. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm with NORBORD, and today we're going to talk about the 5 reasons why you should build with long length wall sheathing. There are more than 5 reasons, but the good news is we're just going to touch on the 5 biggest ones for you. We have a short period of time, so we're going to make sure we keep to the time period that we have. As I said, my name is Craig, and I actually live in South Carolina, but I have ties to Maryland. I grew up in Rockville and went to college at Towson, so somewhat of a local person. If you have questions during the presentation, probably the best thing is just save them until the end. We will have a Q&A at the end for you to ask whatever questions you may have. Okay, sorry about that. My cursor wasn't working quite right. Just a little bit of information about NORBORD. We're the world's largest, actually now, OSB manufacturer. Most of our mills are in North America, with most of those being in the US, but we also have mills in Canada and in Europe. One of the unique things about us is OSB is our only business in North America. We don't manufacture lumber or anything else other than OSB. And we became the largest producer in 2015 when we merged with a West Coast company called Ainsworth. Tall Wall that you see there in the slide is one of our brands that you'll probably have seen in your market, and it was actually the first long length wall sheathing product. Long length sheathing is a panel that covers both the floor and the wall framing with a single piece of sheathing. Long length panels make the home look clean and well constructed. The building codes require walls to resist racking. Wood structural panels are typically used for this purpose. And when we refer to wood structural panels, what we're referring to basically is OSB or plywood. They all fit in that category and serve the same purpose. The 5 reasons why you should build are listed there. We're going to take a look at each one briefly so that you can have a little more information as to why this is something that you should consider and the benefits that it can provide to you and to your tradespeople. The first one is saving a half day of framing time per house. And basically how that comes about is from our customers. You'll see as we go through this, there's some labor and time saving things that will go away that you may currently be doing that will go away if you use the longer length sheathing. And of course that time saving adds up quite quickly when you multiply it by the number of houses that you do. Here's an example of using a long length panel across both the floor and the wall framing of a single story crawl space home. The single piece of sheathing helps to connect the floor and wall framing together. A slab on grade home would be the same as this, but the long length sheathing would be a shorter length. As you can see in the diagram, you can see the floor system here sitting on a stem wall. So this is a crawl space home that we're showing. It will be the same thing, just the lengths would change. Sheathing walls with 4x8 panels typically requires installing lumber blocks between the studs, trimming panels, and nailing panel joints into the blocking. For as we all know, even an 8-foot ceiling height slab home is taller than 8 foot on the outside. So basically what we're saying there is if you took most people don't build 8-foot single stories anymore, but if you had an 8-foot single story, an 8-foot piece of sheeting really doesn't cover your entire wall because your wall is taller than that on the outside. When you have blocking, it requires, say, a significant amount of additional framing lumber. Again, a framing crew spends about a half day just installing the needless blocking. This is costly and unnecessary work, especially because we don't have enough framers currently to go around. We certainly don't want them spending valuable time doing unnecessary work. Framers can install sheeting in different ways. You'll probably recognize one of the methods we're going to show you here. Some framers use 2 pieces of sheeting for each story, one full 8-foot length joined with a trim length. If you look at the photo that you see there, you can see the 8-foot on the top story and the 8-foot on the bottom story, and then a piece that had to be trimmed to do what we typically call a belly band around the house. With 4x8 sheeting, there's also a row of blocking that goes around the house at each story. So where you see that joint, it's not lining up into the floor band, it's lining up plus or minus of it. So there's blocking that has to be installed there. Other framers use 3 pieces of sheeting for the entire house. 2 pieces are a full 8-foot length and the third is a trim piece. However, this method still results in a row of blocking at each story that goes around the entire house. In this example, you'll notice the sheeting is installed horizontally. Since the wall sheeting is greater than 8 foot, there needs to be 3 horizontal panels. Therefore, this method of sheeting requires 2 rows of blocking instead of 1 that you saw when the panels were oriented vertically. These next slides can help you understand how much work blocking is for the framer. Each block has to be cut to 14.5 inches, nailed between the studs, and then the 4x8 sheeting is fastened into the 2x4 or 2x6 lumber blocks. In this photo, you can see the framer here was able to construct his walls without having to install blocking because he had full-length sheets. So obviously going to speed him up. This is what we see in a lot of areas because we see a fair amount of our tall wall product used in your marketplace, and that's 9-foot and 10-foot, which helps you a lot for the wall system that we were looking at before, in that your blocking goes away in there. But what you still have to do is put this belly band on that you see the framers installing in this photo. So they've got the full sheet on the first floor, they're installing the ribbon, and then on the second floor, when they tilt it up, it will have a full sheet on there also. The correct length panels would cover both the wall framing and the floor framing and speed these framers up even more. Oops, sorry, clicked once too quickly there. This diagram really helps if you're speaking to your framers and drives home to them why this is easier for them and faster for them. You can see the panel count on the side of that structure to the left used 57 pieces of OSB that the framer had to pick up and handle and fasten using the proper length sheeting, the longer length sheeting. He's only handling 35 sheets. So obviously a much faster build for the framer. This photo shows how walls with a tail are tilted up on the job site. You can notice the panel extension at the bottom of that wall section, and that helps connect the upper story to the lower story. It's a question we get asked quite a bit is, hey, we're building our walls, our second story walls, which is a predominant way to do it in a lot of markets. We're sheeting that on the deck and then tilting that wall section up. This shows one, how you can do that. One of the added benefits, along with what you would typically have, is it actually helps the framer straighten that wall, because now he's got that lip there that's going to hold it up against the floor system and going to allow his wall to be straighter without as much adjustment as he may have. NORBORD makes 3 different brands of longer length wall sheeting, 2 of which you would see in your region. Tall wall, which most of you hopefully have seen, there's a fair amount of it used in your marketplace, and that's the original longer length panel. It's been out for over 10 years now. We also make Windstorm, which was originally designed for the high wind areas, and then Quake Zone. Quake Zone is a product that you won't see in the Maryland marketplace. It's a more Western product designed for the earthquake-prone areas of the West Coast. As I said, tall wall is the original length panel. It started and is available in 9 and 10 foot lengths. And here's what we typically see in your market, the way it's used. And again, you can see the tall wall sheet is covering the wall section, but then there's a filler strip typically when there's a floor system, whether that be under the first floor or between the first and second floor. Our tall wall brand is available in the 9 and 10 foot lengths, like I indicated to you. Depending on how you use it, sometimes you'll see the 10 foot sheets, especially where it will take you up into the floor system if you had a 9 foot wall on a slab like you're seeing here. And there are opportunities to use tall wall, both 9 and 10 foot, and do the house in 2 pieces if you have a 2-story home. So I don't confuse you, and I already really mentioned that, but if I don't confuse you, QuakeZone, as I said, is available only on the West Coast. Windstorm is the second generation of long length wall sheeting. It was initially designed for the high wind areas such as you have in Maryland in the coastal areas when you get to Ocean City and other areas on the eastern shore there. With it, this second generation long length panels is available in longer and more specific lengths. It's available up to 145 and an eighth in length, so 12 foot, inch and an eighth in length. Here's what the houses look like when they're covered in windstorm. You see a single story there, 1 sheet per floor, and then in the multi-story you can see just 1 sheet per each floor, so 2 sheets cover the wall. In multi-story, again, you can see 1 sheet per floor goes up. So in multi-story, if any of you are doing multifamily construction, it greatly speeds it up, and productivity is an even bigger factor in multi-story construction. Here's some of the lengths that are available. The first slide here is showing you the lengths that are for single-story construction. It's basically 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 foot, which with an extra 1 and an eighth on the length. The reason for that extra 1 and an eighth is what you're seeing in the little cutout circle there, in that by having that extra 1 and an eighth, now it'll take you all the way up on that top plate and give you a stronger connection. It gives you a continuous load path all the way up. That's a good thing everywhere, but it's especially important when you get in the wind areas. Now you've got a continuous connection. For 2 stories, it's really a math situation. Look at your wall heights. Everyone builds a little bit different. You have different floor systems, that sort of thing. Sometimes you have a raised heel truss. This is just showing you some combinations that you can do for 2-story construction in taking the tall wall brand and the windstorm brand and combining it and making it actually in these cases so that there's no trimming involved at all. Your framer just takes a sheet, pulls it off the unit, tilts it up, nails it off, and he's done. So we move on to the second reason. The second reason is faster installation for your trades. Long length sheeting is going to speed them up and make those trades move faster through your job. Pick the trade that you want. In this photo, you can see the electrician not only having to take his wires through the blocking that's involved in that wall, but quite often what I see if you're building single-story slabs, and if the framer is of the habit of taking that first sheet and running it horizontally, that is at 4 foot where that blocking would be, which is exactly where you need to put your electrical outlets in the kitchen. So you quite often see them having to cut those out, or worse yet, tear those out. You can see how it gets in the way of insulation, whether that's fiberglass or foam, and the other trades that are there. So you don't want to have your electrician having to drill extra holes, or the insulator. The insulator, if he's doing it correctly, you should see the picture that you're seeing there. If you're getting a grade 1 install, which is really what most of everyone is paying for, and you're using fiberglass bats, that installer should have a utility knife, and he should be trimming each piece of insulation to fit into the cavity, not just pushing it over the blocking and then condensing the insulation, because your energy rater is going to tell you if you condense insulation, you lose most of the value of it. Once again, you can notice with long length sheathing, you've got an open wall cavity. That's what your trades are working with if you have the right length sheathing. They don't have those obstructions to have to work around. Talk a little bit about energy efficiency, reducing air leakage, and thermal bridging, which is the third reason. Here you can see what happens when you have to put the blocking in, which is required in most jurisdictions when you have a panel joint that's unsupported. Those blocks typically are never going to meet up exactly right, so you've got a gap in there that's going to provide air leakage. Sheathing joints are going to give you more opportunities for air leakage. The more you have, obviously, the more you're going to have to deal with that. Also, that blocking results in thermal bridging, which is energy loss through those framing members. Here's really another shot of just the fiberglass in there, and you can see the gap in the circled pull out there where that insulation is not going all the way up. So you have a small gap there where the insulation is not going to do its job. If you multiply that by all of the insulation bays around the house, it ends up to be a much bigger hole than you might expect. In this photo, you're seeing a gap where the sheathing meets when you're not using full length. And it's something that I remind folks, because the installation instructions from the American Plywood Association from all the way back in the plywood days are that when you're installing any 4x8 structural panel, you need to leave an 1/8 inch gap all the way around that panel. So sometimes framers, when they're using shorter sheets like this, will try to push that panel down tight. That's going to help them with air leakage, but what it's going to do is potentially cause buckling of the panels when those wood products move. So there should be a gap there. Once you put the block there, that's going to cover up some of it, but you still have a considerable amount of air leakage that's coming around that block. With it, blocking by itself does not solve the air leakage problem. House wrap helps with it, but if you had the long length panels and house wrap, then you're going to have even less air leakage. Long length panels could have been used in this application to get rid of all those gaps that you see. And you even see one if you look closely above that door where they must have joined a panel wrong. It looks like an air gap. So you get into air sealing, and a lot of people obviously are doing that now with the energy codes. And you can see where when you have blocking, it's just even more foam that you've got to use to seal off that air infiltration. So if you get rid of that, you're losing a tremendous amount of lineal footage of sealant that your insulator or whoever's doing that work for you doesn't need to do. Some builders choose to tape the inside of the seams, and that can be done, but once again, the more joints you have, the more tape you have to use, the more time your installer has to do. In this example, you're seeing a smart builder, who is using some advanced framing techniques. And you can see that he's shortened the length of some of his cripple studs under the windows to reduce thermal bridging, but yet he still blocked that wall. So it would have been much simpler for him, and he would have actually got more benefit to use longer length panels, get rid of the blocking. And if he does that in combination with what he's done under the windows, that's even better from an energy perspective. Long length panels improve energy efficiency by reducing the air leakage, thermal bridging, insulation gaps. Builders and energy raters have reported that long length panels improve your blower door tests, that it's something that is a noticeable improvement in your blower door test simply by going to the longer length panels. The fourth reason to consider long length wall sheathing is reduced sheathing and lumber waste. We would all certainly prefer not to have our homeowners see this lumber and sheathing waste. Not only does it look bad, but they may ask why they had to pay for all of this. Of course, some sheathing is unused because of door and window cutouts, and you'll always have some waste. So this is going to get rid of all the waste, but it's going to get rid of a considerable amount of it. Because the long length panels are pre-trimmed at the mill, there's less sheathing waste on the job sites because they don't need to be trimmed to length. The question we often ask builders is, you use pre-cut studs, why do you not use pre-cut sheathing? And here you can see where the extra lumber was bought for the blocking that's in this wall. And why would you want to buy extra lumber to block when you don't have to? And a fair amount of that ends up in the dumpster and then the landfill. Certainly material waste going to the landfill is something we all would like to avoid from an environmental perspective. Eliminating and reducing disposal costs saves you money. And the fifth reason is curb appeal. And most people don't think about OSB as curb appeal, but on the weekends, we still have people driving around through developments, probably especially more so now with the pandemic when they've got less other things to do. You can see an example here of tall wall used in residential construction in this two-story home. Notice how the panels fit the wall heights. And of course, the blocking is limited on the inside, but look at how nice and clean this looks with the consistent panel length, consistent color, except for some reason that little outbuilding or whatever it is on the back of the house is for some reason a different color. And that's probably because that's 8 foot. It looks like it's shorter than that other wall. So which home looks better to you? The one on the left or the one on the right? The picture to the left shows walls that look like a knitted quilt. It's kind of a patchwork. Sometimes it actually looks like people use scrap. In this case, the sizing is about the same, but I've seen some where people have used all kinds of different lengths to piece it in there. The home on the right has a consistent, clean look. It creates impression with potential home buyers that your homes are built better and stronger. So there you have it, folks, the top 5 reasons why you should build with long length sheathing. Long length tall wall and windstorm is readily available from dealers in your market. If they don't currently stock the length you need, they can easily bring it in with their normal orders. Whatever they stock, they can just add a unit of whatever lengths, whatever product you need. Just let them know what those lengths are, and typically most of the building supplies will bring that in for you. Should you have any difficulty with your lumber dealer, indicating that one, they either can't get it or it costs a fortune, please let me know. You'll have my contact information on the last slide, and I believe MBIA is going to provide that information out to you also. One thing that we didn't touch on that I like to let people know, because the obvious question is you see all these wonderful things and then you think, well, gee, how much does this cost? And what you're going to find with the longer length wall sheathing, just like tall wall and that 9 and 10 foot that you may be using today, it's a couple pennies more per square foot of board than the 8 foot board is. However, your cost per house should not go up. And the way that magic happens is that you use less OSB, you buy less OSB to cover the house when you're using the right length. So each one of those, that small increase in per square foot price and the decrease in the amount of product that you need to buy will typically offset each other. So your OSB price typically stays the same for your house. What you pick up as a builder, of course, is the speed of all your trades, but you also pick up the savings from not having to buy all that blocking. So my contact information is on this last screen here. Please feel free to reach out to me if I can answer any questions for you. I want to help you understand the benefits that long length sheathing can bring to you. I believe we have the opportunity. I think we still have a couple minutes here. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain questions that you may have now. I believe you can just unmute yourself and hopefully I'll be able to hear you.
Craig, are you guys going to come out with any kind of laminated with the wrap kind of painted on, like a zip wall type of thing in the tall length?
We continue to look at that. There are a couple obstacles. One is Huber has a pretty strong patent on that, and in fact, they've sued some of our competitors that have tried to do a copycat product. What we continue to look for is there a better way to provide that same type product in one, by better, not only one that will do the job as well as zip will, but also one that's not as cost effective. Because the one comment we hear from people about zip is they wish it wasn't so much of a premium. So we'd like to find something that's a little more cost effective and would have to be a little bit different technology in order to stay clear of their patent infringement issues. Any other questions? Well, folks, I certainly appreciate your time. I want to mention again that I'd be pleased to work with you and your customers or framers or dealers in investigating what long length panels can do for you. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your support of MBIA. It's great that they put this virtual show on, and it's great that you folks took time out of your day to attend. So thank you again, and I hope to hear from you soon.